Hey there, this is Nula from Magical Kingdom Memories, and in our house we really love the Disney Tsum Tsums. It is the app, the game you can play on your iPhone. I believe it is also on your Android, and they sell the little Tsum Tsums at the Disney Store and the Disney Store online. But some of the characters in the game are not available yet through Disney Store, so I found a tutorial online on YouTube to do an Olaf Tsum Tsum, make your own out of a sock. So we really love Big Hero 6 here. Our kids love it, and Baymax was just recently introduced to the Tsum Tsum game, but there are no Baymax Tsum Tsums yet. So I decided to take the tutorial I'd seen, excuse me, for Olaf, and basically use that base and make a Baymax Tsum Tsum. So what you're going to need is, first of all, you're going to need a sock, a white sock. I picked these up at the dollar store here, Dollar Tree, and there's 4 socks in here for $1. These are size child size 4 to 6.5. Now you can get any size sock you want to get. If you want to get bigger socks, make a bigger Tsum Tsum, you can do that as well. The size really isn't that important. You do want the crew socks though, the longer socks, because you will be cutting, and the ankle socks may not be long enough, so definitely want crew sock size. Like I said, $1 for 4 socks, it's great. So we have our socks. You're going to need some stuffing. I have black paint here. I have some leftover black fabric paint for doing the eyes and I guess it's his mouth, on his face. You probably can use regular paint. Fabric paint is definitely better. It's a little softer, easier to use on fabric. You could also use felt for the eyes and other things. You don't have to use paint. I'm just not sure how those would work out as far as the quality and how they would go on. So yeah, we need some paint. Got our stuffing and a needle and thread. You're going to be hand sewing today. So let's get started. Okay, first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your sock and you are going to cut straight across the fabric of the sock. I'm just going to cut it across. You don't have to get too picky here as far as exactly where. You just want a good straight cut like that. If it's a little off, it's a little off. Sometimes it's hard to judge because you are going to be sewing. I actually need to cut this so that it's straight, more straight to the sock itself. There we go. All right. Okay, so there's our sock. Next thing we're going to do is stuff the sock. Make sure you push your stuffing in the front really well because you need this to be, you don't want it weird spots like this as much. Okay, so you want to really stuff it in there. All right. Now it's stuffed pretty well. There's some space here, you know, for the edge because you are going to do some sewing. This is very easy sewing too. So once you get your stuffing in there, you want to kind of smush it around so you don't have a lumpy Tsum. You want him to be nice and straight, not lumpy. Okay. All right. We have stuffing in there. Now this part, we're going to do some hand sewing. Now this is very easy to do. I hope I can get a good shot of this. You're just going to take your needle and your thread, and you're just going to go in and out of the fabric, just like that, all the way around. Very simple. Nothing complicated here. And if your kids are old enough to use needle and thread, they've done this kind of thing before, this is actually very easy for them to do. My 9-year-old actually made her own, sewed it and everything. So this is a good kids craft. Hey, it's snowing out, you're stuck in the house. It's a great thing to do to keep them occupied. And I will try and find the link and post it in the comments of the original YouTube tutorial I found on the Olaf Tsum, because they actually have some great tutorials on all different kinds of Tsum Tsums you can make yourself. So okay, once you get to, I'm sorry, I keep going on the photo here. Once you get out of to the end where you started, it's actually the beginning, you're actually going to do another row exactly the same, just in and out all the way around right below the stitch you already did. All right, so now once you've completed your second row, you're going to come right to where you started with that first row. You're going to take your thread and you're just going to pull it. Now as you're pulling it, you're going to want to tuck in the ends. So you're just going to pull this nice and tight and just tuck the ends in. Shot. As you do that, tuck and pull. Just pull it nice and tight. Big finger. Just like that. That's what you look like when you're done. Now what you're going to do now is you're actually just going to stitch just a couple stitches through here, just across, just to kind of secure it. And we're going to go from here. It doesn't matter which spot, there's not an exact way to do this or a certain order, just get a few stitches in here just to secure the end here. Close it up a little so it's nice and neat and tight. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to put your needle through another spot just like this, and you're going to take your thread so we can tie this off. And you're going to wrap your thread around about 3 times, should be good. And you're going to hold it right like here. And you're going to pull the needle up all the way and pull it tight. Okay. Then to finish off, because we really don't want this extra threads hanging out, you're going to take your needle and you're going to put it right through and have it come out another spot on his body. Doesn't matter where. And you're going to pull that through. And then you are going to snip it. You want to pull this tight as you cut the thread so that the extra thread goes right inside the body, which I did not do. So. Complicated. All right, so we've got our base. This is our base. Here's our Baymax, see? Right here. Now, like I said, they're going to be different sizes. It doesn't matter. There's not an exact science to this as far as size. You know, it's really up to you how big, how small you want to make your Tsums. So now we have our Baymax. All right, so the next thing we need to do is he needs his feet. He has these little feet. Tsum Tsums have these little feet on them. Now, I don't have a pattern, again, because depending on what size socks you're using, you're going to just basically cut 4 little feet. You can see this shape of his feet. You're just going to cut 4 little ones like that. So let's see. I like to try and fold it over. Use a smaller piece because it makes it a little bit easier to deal with when you're cutting these out. And what you can do is actually just double it over. You're going to cut like a little shape like this. Kind of hard to explain. You're just going to cut around just like this. Just little feet. I don't want to drop it. All right, so when you fold over the fabric as you cut it out, then you can just snip down the middle and you'll have 2 feet, just like that. And they don't have to be perfect, they don't have to be exact, you know, you just need some little feet. So now I'm going to actually take one of these to try and cut another one. They don't have to be exactly the same, front and back. Don't get too crazy, don't get too picky. Okay, so we're going to just snip around the one we already cut, use it as a guide, and you can cut another little foot, another little 2 feet. All right, I'm going to round it out a little bit so his feet are round and not square. All right, and then we're just going to do the same thing we did to the other one. We're going to snip this. Now we have all our little Baymax feet. Baymax feet. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is on the bottom of the Tsum Tsum, there's a little flap. This one doesn't have it. I didn't do this one yet. Of like a fabric. So we can take a piece of felt if you want to. If you don't, it's fine. You don't have to do the bottom part. You want to take this, and you're going to kind of go from the back of your Tsum to the front. Now it doesn't go all the way to the front, so we need one part that's flat and one part that is rounded. So I'm just going to cut a piece of felt, general size, nothing crazy. And cut straight up one side. Try and make it like a rectangle, and then you can just round off the one end of it. After you've cut that, I'm just going to round this out. Just like that. And I've dropped Baymax on the floor. Okay, so this piece will go on the bottom. I'm trying to remember which direction it goes. This way. This little piece. All right. I mean, if you want to, if you have some bean bags or those little pellets, you can actually put some in here as you're sewing if you wanted to get it more of that beanbaggy Tsum Tsum feel, but you don't have to. It's really not necessary. Okay, so this next part can be a little bit tricky. There's two ways to do it. You can sew these on separately. You can sew this on and then sew the feet on. If that's easier for you, that's fine. You can also use glue. If you don't even want to sew, you can actually glue this on. I haven't done it, but I know you can do that as well. But the way I like to do it is to sew the feet on at the same time as I'm sewing on the little belly part here. So I'm just going to do a stitch. All right, a couple stitches right in here at the top. Just like that. And then tuck one of your little feet under here, and then sew through the foot and the belly piece, just like that. Just going around and around and around. That is how we're going to stitch this whole part, just around. Just like that. Right, so then we're going to finish the foot and go down the belly, down the side, and when we get down a little ways, we will add the other little foot in. Close to the bottom, you're going to add another little foot right there. And do the same thing you did with the first one, which is going to go in through the foot and out through the other piece. Just a couple stitches, usually 2 or 3 stitches will get you through the foot. And now around the back. Okay, now we're going to add another foot on this side. Just tuck it in there and sew it down. So we're going to add the last little foot here, and let's see, tuck it in there and sew it. Now when you get to the end here, you've got this opening right now. We're going to sew that closed, but like I said, if you have some of those little beanie pellets so you can buy at the craft store, if you have some of those, you want to stuff them in there, you'll get that beanie feel like you get with the real Disney Tsum Tsums. If not, you can just sew this final strip across here. All right, so now you've got it sewed all the way across. Go back to where we started. You're just going to tie it off, and you just can. It's not specific. You don't have to do something a certain way. I just like to put the needle through, and then take the loop, and I'll put my needle through that twice, just like that, and pull it. Tie it off however you want. And we're going to do basically the same thing we did when we were sewing the back here. We're going to take our needle, and we're going to stick it through, and come out another side, wherever it comes out, and you're going to pull that up tight, and then you're going to snip your thread, and the end will go inside of your Tsum. So there's no little pieces hanging out, no strings. I have dropped my needle. Good job. So that is it. That's the base. This is basically our Baymax Tsum. He's got his feet. He's got his belly. Now we just need to do his face, and he will be all done. Okay, so our last thing we need to do with our Baymax sock Tsum is we need to do his face. Now I'm going to use fabric paint and paint for the whole thing. You could also cut circles out of felt for the eyes and just glue them on, and then use some kind of marker, fabric marker, something that's not going to bleed though, depending on the fabric your sock is made of. With markers you may have bleeding, so you could actually try the markers out on the extra piece of the sock that you cut off originally. If you want to use a marker and see how it's going to work, you can do that. That's great, you know, have some test fabric there left over. So I'm going to use fabric paint. So I'm just going to take my paint. I have it in the cup, just a little bit because I don't need that much. I'm going to get a pretty good amount on my brush though, because painting circles is a little tricky. So I'm basically going to take our Tsum, and you're just going to make a circle. Just start small, very small. You don't need to do it with the whole thing in one shot. You're just going to kind of get the shape of the circle on the sock. So I like to turn it. You do half and turn it. It's a little easier to get a full circle. And it's good to have a good blob of paint on your brush too, because there is the seam here. If your socks don't have seams, you don't have to worry about it, but my sock has a seam on it. And then you can kind of, if you want to make the eye bigger at this point, you can make it a little bigger. All right, and do the next eye. And you just kind of have to eyeball it where his eye is going to go. It's not an exact science here. So we're just going to put another eye right about here. Right about here. It would be helpful if the camera was on and you could see where I'm putting the eye. And once you get the general placement, if you want to make a bigger, smaller, this eye is a little smaller than the other one, so I'm going to try and even that out a bit. And you know what? You're not going to get perfect circles every time. So we have two eyes. Okay, and the next thing we need to do is the line. This is the tricky part. A marker, I have not tried a marker, so I don't know how that would work. This is tricky here because you don't want too much paint on your brush, but you want enough to fill in. Now the good thing about this sock is that with the seam on there, I can use that as a guide as I'm actually doing this, so it's just kind of tricky with the camera here. So I'm just going to take the tip of my brush. I have a flat brush here, so I'm going to take the tip of it right in that little line there and go across. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit more paint on my brush. I don't want too much because you don't want it blobbing. You want to get a nice line on your Tsum as best as you can. I mean, it's tricky. I just got paint on them. Good job. Baymax got a boo-boo. Be careful not to get paint on your hands. Yeah. A little bit more paint. Almost done. Finish that line up down the middle of our sock. And there he is, a Baymax sock Tsum. And just be careful, look what I just did. You want to see what I just did? Paint on the finger, paint on the sock. So I know I probably can get that off when it's wet. I'm sure there's a way to clean it off, but yeah, that's it. That's basically it. And you have a little Baymax sock Tsum. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and have a great day. All right, thanks. Bye.